So today on the program, we have two special guests. We have Michael Dakduke, who is the new president and CEO of the Institute. And we also have Kevin Pearson, who many of you know, who is the chairman of the Institute. Welcome, gentlemen. How are you doing today?
Very well. Thank you, Jeff.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, our videos might not be perfectly in sync because I know we're far apart. There'll be some lags today. But good to have you both here to help us to get to know more about IICRC and what is going on today. But Michael, let's start with you. I know you're new to the organization. Tell us a little bit about yourself and where you came from, what you did before.
Well, let me begin, Jeff, by thanking you for allowing myself and the chairman, Kevin Pearson, to join you, Jeff Cross, and Straight Talk. So we're grateful for being on the show. A little bit about my background before coming back to my hometown of Las Vegas, Nevada, where IICRC is headquartered, which is known as the Global Resource Center. I was in Washington, D.C. And in Washington, D.C., I did a lot of government relations and advocacy around career, technical, and trade education programs. So I'm very familiar with certifications and different types of credentials in the career, technical, and trade fields. So naturally, I was drawn to IICRC, mostly because I think in our country, less so in a few other countries, but specifically in the United States, that there is not enough value placed on technical and trade fields. We do see that in other countries, and we're a global organization, but technical and trade fields are generally valued in other countries a bit more than the United States. And that's something that when I was in Washington, D.C. doing advocacy work, I saw that the Institute was headquartered here in the States and specifically back in my hometown. So there was two things. One, have a passion for career, technical, and trade programming. And two, couldn't wait to get back home to Las Vegas where the weather, you don't see snow unless you head up to the mountains. So that's why I was ready to escape the East Coast. Well, that's a little bit about my background. I guess the last thing I'd say is prior to my work in career tech and trade programs, I did a lot with military veterans. I'm a veteran myself. I served in Iraq and Afghanistan in the Marine Corps. So I did a lot of advocacy work around educational programs and transitioning support for military veterans and their families.
What a nice fit and nice, neat background as well. The nice details. Now, when you went back to Vegas, things weren't quite the same, I imagine, unless you were there well before the pandemic.
No, I arrived right, what would you say, Kevin? Was it about 5 days or a week or so? I can't remember when I first arrived, and then it was the pandemic hit. And then everything kind of shut down, but I'll let Kevin speak to it because he was actually here with me for the first 3 or 4 days, helping me transition into the role.
All right. Well, Kevin, thank you for your help on that. Tell us about yourself, even though you've been with the IICRC for how long?
Well, since 2011 is whenever I got on the board, Jeff. You know, I've been a part of the organization a lot longer than that. So I did want to say I am envious of all your awards behind you on the wall. If I could only get that many awards, maybe someday we'll be somebody. So
no, it's just something has to be on the wall, and that they're not all awards. You can see in the background that there's an issue of clean facts. That's my first clean facts that I put out.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, and of course, I have my IICRC plaques up there as well. I'm an instructor, as you know. So
right,
yeah.
So a little bit about my background is I started in the cleaning and restoration industry in 1992, somewhere around August of 92. And, became certified. Jeff Bishop was actually my first instructor. And then, I did somewhere along the lines, I decided I needed to get involved a little bit more, worked on some standards committees, this sort of thing, and really enjoyed that kind of work. Never realized that you could talk for an hour about whether "and" was the correct use of a word at that point in a sentence or not, but you can. And then you know, in 2011, like I said, I got the call and they said, hey, congratulations, you're now on the board of the Clean Trust. And I said, no, wait a minute. I signed up to be on the board of the IICRC. And they said, well, we changed the name. And from that moment on, there was always these little bells that went off in my head every time somebody said the Clean Trust. And it was like in my head, I was saying, stupid name, stupid name. And so one of my proudest moments of being on the board was about 2 years later, whenever I made the motion to change it back to IICRC. And so, you know, and then somewhere along the line, somebody thought it'd be a great idea to elect me as chairman of the board. And so here we are today. So that's kind of how I got hearing a little bit about my background.
I love it. Love the details and the stories. Yeah, the Clean Trust was an interesting change, and I love your honesty about how you felt about it.
I never made any bones about it being on the board. It from day one, it just was not a good name for me.
Well, those watching this program may not know much about that history, but they can look back on cleanfacts.com and see some of the old articles about it, and probably other places as well. But I was there at that meeting when they announced the name change. Maybe you were there too, but didn't go over well. But it was done. It was done, and so it took someone like you to bring it back, to bring back IICRC.
Yeah. It's important that we get the name back.
Yeah. Well, good deal. Well, let's get into some questions I prepared. I've got 82 questions.
Awesome. That's it.
So now when I say 10 questions, it sounds good, right? Some of these we'll answer quickly. Others we might get into a little bit more, but they're not too tough. But here's the first question for you guys. And either one of you can answer these. And it might be just one. It could be both. And I think this is on everyone's minds, is how is the IICRC doing now that there's no classroom training, or at least very little at this time? How are you doing financially and operationally?
Well, I'll speak to it, Mr. Chairman, on the financial side and operationally. But Kevin can speak to what the board did in terms of augmenting our in-person classes with live stream online courses, which I know you're familiar with, Jeff. But I'll just speak to that briefly before I kick it to Kevin, and that is, you know, we implemented a live stream policy that does not have a firm end date. We're embracing technology just like the rest of the world is. We recognize that organizing large courses or even small to medium-sized classes is more difficult for many of our instructors. And with the implementation of a live stream policy, which the chairman and our board of directors quickly voted on as we were in the midst of the beginning phases of the pandemic, we got that turned around operationally very quickly. It was embraced by our instructors. We are now proctoring students so that when they take an exam, they sit in front of a camera as we're conversing here. And through the beauty of technology, we're able to monitor students and make sure that they're not, to the best of our abilities and to the best of advances in technologies today, make sure that they're taking exams and they're not cheating or doing it by upholding integrity when it comes to the exams. In terms of the financial strength of the organization, we're fortunate. The Institute is a financially healthy nonprofit organization. And we're facing some challenges just like everyone else is, but we're making the necessary offsets in our expenses and in our because of in-person courses to make sure that we come out with a very good year at the end of our fiscal year, which ends on the end of September. So we're doing great financially, and we're making the necessary moves and decisions to keep us going and succeeding and delivering certifications to the technicians that need them.
Yeah. And, you know, kind of like what Mike said, you know, in March, somewhere in March, we all of a sudden realized we had 184 instructors out of work. because up until that point, we had every one of our classes were in person. And so we, we realized that we have tons of technicians and certified firms that need the certifications, and they had no way to get them. So I called a board meeting toward the end of March, and literally 5 days after that board meeting, we had the live streaming application for the approved instructors to go on and fill out the application so that they could start teaching a live stream course. And 2 of those days were a Saturday and a Sunday. So you tell me, Jeff, you've been a part of this organization for a long time yourself. You ever remember anything coming out of IICRC that quickly? I mean, it just doesn't happen. And so it was kind of one of those things where we said, hey, we got to do this. We got to do it now. Mike was there at the GRC, and he made it happen. And, so a lot of credit goes to him and to the board for making the decision to get this going. And because of that, we've been able to, make sure thousands of technicians since March have been able to go through a class and get the certification they need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of honesty here today. It's nice to see. Because IICRC can grind slowly, and it's a big organization, and I'm part of it. And I was pleasantly surprised to see how quickly that came out, because we've been talking about online training for many years, and of course the pandemic kind of said, hey, it's time to do something, and you guys did it. Yeah, no, good job there. So here's an easy question for you. Those looking for certification might ask, why should they decide on the IICRC? Well, what's your sales pitch there?
Well, for me, it's always because we're the holder of the standards in the industry. And so out of those standards comes our education. And so that's the main reason why IICRC is so well thought of. And it has been for ever since I can remember. That was one of the reasons I got involved, as I said earlier, was to help write standards.
Yeah, I've been on some of the standard writing committees myself, and it does take a while to get a standard out. Is there any way to make that process a little quicker?
Well, I think some of the ones that are the slowest are the ones that most people want, like the water damage standard. There may be some that can come out quicker than that in some of the other subjects, but it's a consensus process, and so anytime you have to get a consensus body together and get them all to agree on something, it's going to be a little bit of a process to do that. So it takes a little time. Now,
all the ones who work on these standards are paid big money, I believe. I've heard that.
Yeah. As far as being a volunteer for nothing, if you call that big money.
Yeah. So, but I know there's a lot of qualified people that definitely donate a lot to do that. Let's talk about hands-on training. Now, I know that the IICRC acquired the ICRA. We need more acronyms in our organization, don't we? And that was because of the testing, the hands-on testing. But what about both? Hands-on training, hands-on testing. What do you see for the future of that?
Well, Mike, you want to take that?
Well, I can tell you that when I first came into this organization, I recognized that there are many different ways that you can deliver training, especially coming from career, technical, and trade education. And usually when you talk about technical and trade fields, there are hands-on components. Not always, but usually there will be. I think that this board and the Institute as a whole has been looking at ways that we can deliver our educational content in various ways. And one thing that we're going to be doing in the next 6 months to a year, the board is already looking at a fully developed strategic plan for the upcoming fiscal year, which starts on October 1. And we're going to look at strengthening the way that we deliver our certification programs to registrants, to technicians. And one of those ways is possibly looking at, are there other ways to evaluate technicians beyond just a written exam? And I know that's something that has been discussed. In fact, it predates my arrival here. You can look at the previous annual report where the education committee that Kevin previously chaired, they were looking at performance-based assessments and all types of different models for educational delivery and assessments. So I can just tell you that when I arrived here, one of the things that I considered most valuable about IICRC is what Kevin already mentioned, and that is the standards kind of what drive the credibility of everything. We're going to strengthen our certifications in many other ways beyond just our accredited standards, and that will be happening in the next 6 to 12 months.
Well, I know if you guys get this going as you did the online learning, it's going to happen by Tuesday. No, I understand that. What's that, Kevin?
I said that could be true.
You know what it takes is a decision, and then everyone gets behind it, and you make it happen.
Right.
And, that's probably what happened. Were there any interesting stories behind the online learning experience? Like when you guys were working on that, there must have been some things that were going on or comments that you could share.
Yeah, you know, it just happened so fast. It was just like we wrapped up the board meeting on a Wednesday night, and I want to say it was probably like 8:30 Central Time, PM, when we wrapped it up. And so Mike said, "Hey, I'll get this thing out by Monday." And so really he had Thursday and Friday, and I think he conned some of the staff into helping him do some things on Saturday and Sunday, and he just never told me about it. I don't know how it was done, but you know, that's just kind of what happened. But you know, after that, it took about a week for the first class to actually get held online. And so that put us into the second week of April, right? And from the second week of April till the end of April, there was something like, was it 17 or 1,800 people sign up for an IICRC exam and go through a class. It was amazing at how fast it all happened. It just had to be the perfect storm. But to your point earlier, we had been, you know, talking about this forever. I guess it just kind of took a pandemic for us to get it done.
You know what it might be? It was all in our heads, and it just finally came out, and it happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So any hiccups in the process? You know, that we've had, I don't know how many classes online, but have you heard anything, any concerns, any like, we got to fix this or?
Yeah, we did. We actually said that, hey, we're going to kind of gather information. I think staff's been on a few of the calls or the classes. I actually sat in on a couple of instructor classes myself, and we kind of brought back everything we kind of learned. And one of the things that we were hearing quite often was, hey, we could probably do more students in a class if we had like somebody to kind of run the chat on Zoom and, you know, hand out documents to people, you know, run the email, this kind of thing. And so about 2 weeks ago, I think it was,
that's right,
approved a new class size, because up until the end of July, it was 20 in a class.
Is that for every class?
Yes.
Okay.
Now it's 20 in a class with one instructor. And then if the instructor has a helper, they can go up to 40 in the class. And so that's kind of a new change. And it was one of the things that we were kind of listening to the instructors that were doing this a lot, and, you know, say, hey, what do you think? Is this good, bad? Do we need to change it? And that was one of the things we kept hearing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, managing a number of people is tough. I imagine with the online component, it might be a little easier, but with a helper, someone to do the stuff on the side, you can get it
Right.
done. Yeah, I once taught a carpet cleaning class with, I think, pushing 50 students. That's by myself. That's a challenge. Yeah.
That's a challenge. Well, and you know, the other thing I heard from instructors is, hey, teaching this class, it's the same information, but teaching it online was like very draining for the instructor. And after they've taught several of them, I think they've kind of gotten used to it and they kind of have adjusted and all that. But I think at first it's also new and you're trying to pay attention to the whole screen and, you know, it's different. And so it's kind of draining to somebody doing it for the first time or maybe even the first couple of times. But then they kind of get used to it, get in a rhythm, and it becomes a lot easier. So that was another kind of thing that we just kind of, it was kind of an interesting side note that I didn't think even be a big deal, but it was.
I've heard the term Zoom fatigue. You know, you stare at the screen all day, you're concentrating, you still got to take the test, and you've got to be there. People might think with online learning they could turn off the camera and maybe go do something, but I've heard some interesting stories from the instructors how they keep everyone in line. So, yeah. Hey, Mike, have you taken a class yet? Because I know if you haven't, you probably plan on it.
No, I haven't. One of the things that's interesting is usually a staff in an organization like this, you generally refrain from taking the test because we have access to the information.
Mm-hmm.
I have access to all of the answer keys. You see it. Now, it's probably better if I took it now because I haven't reviewed it and seen it over years, but having worked in nonprofits that usually deliver educational content, there's generally a separation of staff to the individuals that deliver the content or work on the content for this
mm-hmm.
specific reason, because we have access to all of that. And if I were to go get certified, it can easily be said that, okay, well, wait, you can go pull an answer key and just do it. So I try to distance myself from that and run this as a professional nonprofit. That's my background, leading nonprofits, running nonprofits, from HR to finance to operations to board governance, and working on that aspect of the organization. Could I take it and would I be willing to? Absolutely. If that's something that the chairman and the board sees as something that they'd like me to do, I'm happy to. But I will tell you this, I am happy to participate and get involved in whatever our technicians do. I before the pandemic hit, intended on traveling the country with the chairman and engaging certified technicians, certified firms, leaders in the field, and seeing exactly what they do. When I was in the Marines, I was enlisted. And for people that don't know that, that means I was in the trenches. I was a field technician. I was a radio operator, so I carried a radio on my back in addition to the weight that they put on your back. So I always had to carry more. The point is I was on the ground doing work. So I've always had a particular affinity and respect for people that are in the field doing the work with their hands. So once this pandemic lifts, guarantee I'll be out there with them.
Yeah. Well, if you ever do sit in on a class, not that you have to take the test because you have all the answers, as you explained.
Yeah.
You might enjoy the experience. I don't know about the online as much as the classroom, but it can be a good time. And to see the banter and the interaction between instructors and students is refreshing.
I will say this, Jeff, one of the things I did monitor some classes online, but I was told by a few instructors that it's a different vibe being in person, so that to really go to an in-person one next. And we actually have classes here in the Global Resource Center, which sadly they had to be shut down when restrictions in the state of Nevada were put in place. So we haven't had any since I've started.
Yeah, I've done one class there, and it's a beautiful place. It's a great classroom. So I know you can sneak in there whenever the classes start up, anytime you want to. Yeah. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about cleaning science. So how is the IIC either working now or plan to work with organizations like IICRC, who I work for, and we have GBAC as well, or maybe Siri. I'm sure you're familiar with those. Again, more acronyms. Those that don't know who those are, we could look them up online. But any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, you know, we've had a relationship with ISSA for several years now with CleanFacts, and we've also done some things here recently with Siri, and you know, being a part of their organization and all that. It's pretty interesting, and I actually went to their conference. It was last year sometime, and to me that is pretty interesting. As a cleaner who's usually more thought of as kind of the simple guy to sit in on the science of it and to hear the scientists in the industry talk about it from a scientific point of view, it was pretty interesting. And so, yeah, the pandemic has kind of put a weird spin on our priorities here recently, but hopefully when all this lifts, we'll kind of get back to some of that.
Well, it sounds like, Mike, with your background, that'd be something you're interested in, developing the science.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a lot of the work I did before was research driven. So I try to make data driven, research driven decisions. But just to speak to Kevin's point, the collaborative piece of it, I think I had 2 or 3 conversations with ISSA's executive director already, John Barrett, since my arrival here at IICRC, and just different organizations that we've been working with during this pandemic, including a report that was recently put out for technicians and cleaners in our various industries that we represent. I think we had a joint task force that initially started with RIA, the Restoration Industry Association, and has since expanded. So we're trying to collaborate at any chance we get. I think it helps us and it helps the other organizations, mutually beneficial, but it helps the industry or industries that we are involved in.
Yeah, sure.
And we're now on the 4th edition of that paper when we brought in AIHA, another acronym there for you, Jeff. It's the Industrial Hygienist Association. And they, were very active in this 4th edition and helped out quite a bit. So it's nice when we can add the science piece to the documents that we're producing, because, if we don't have good, accurate, scientific information in our standards, it's not going to filter down into our exams or the courses. And so that's always something that we want to do, is to have good scientific information.
Yeah, I agree. That's the point of my bringing it up, because I hear all the time, show me the research, show me the science. What do I believe? There's so much information out there. If you
Right.
Google something, trying to find an answer to something, maybe as a consumer, whoever sounds the best is usually who you believe. So,
Right.
Yeah. One more question, then I'll let you guys make a final comment or two. It's about instructors who are old like me. There's a lot of us. What's the plan to bring in the new generation, the younger generation of instructors? Because, the IICRC is going to grow, and some are going to retire. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we've been thinking about that for years, and we do have quite a few newer instructors or younger instructors that are, teaching and doing this, such like David Hodge, for example. He's a good example. I think he just turned 40, and so, he's one of the younger ones out there. But there's plenty of others. And I think one of the things that we thought that we wanted to kind of showcase our instructors. And so at our annual instructor meeting, we usually always have awards and stuff like this for the instructors. but nobody outside of the instructor base has ever seen that. And this year, we're going to open that up to all the registrants, all the certified firms. And hopefully they'll get to see, you know, what it's like to be an instructor, approved IICRC instructor. And maybe we'll get more people that want to go down that path. You know, we've really been emphasizing the master track program. And as you know, you have to be a master cleaner to be an instructor. And so we want to kind of get more master cleaners and kind of build that instructor base. And we're hoping to, by showcasing our approved instructors on October 3rd at the annual instructor meeting award show, that this will kind of help the process.
I'll be there probably from right here.
Yes, yeah, we're doing it virtually. There's going to be a few of us that'll be in Vegas with Mike, and we're also going to announce the IICRC Hall of Fame inductees at that time.
All right.
So, and I don't know if you saw, we had a new award this year for People's Choice. So all the registrants and certified firms can go and nominate their favorite instructor. And so we're going to do all those awards at that award show on October 3rd. It's going to be on our IICRC YouTube channel, and it'll be right there live from the Global Resource Center in Vegas.
Well, that's cool. That's very cool. Okay, so any final, we'll call it an open mic. No pun intended, Michael.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff.
If you have for a minute or two to talk to not only registrants but those who might think about becoming a registrant, what would you have to tell?
Absolutely. So Kevin mentioned in the beginning of our conversation that we are the premier nonprofit institute that delivers our certifications that are based on accredited industry standards. But we are going to go beyond that in the coming year and years. And we're going to develop our staff to be more customer service oriented, which we feel like we're doing a great job of already, but we're going to do even better. We want to exceed the expectations of the individuals that interact with the IICRC. We want to make sure that we support all of our technicians, and especially the newest generation of technicians. So we know that technicians right now receive a physical card, a pocket card, and a certificate or certification that they receive in the mail. Well, we're going to make sure that that's digital moving forward. So we're not going to replace the physical one that you receive and you can hang up on your wall. But we know that that takes a few weeks to get to you. So why not have it immediately, 24, 48 hours? So we're gonna embrace technology as we've done with live stream with this pandemic, and we're going to apply it to other aspects of the organization. And we're going to continue to strengthen our certifications and potentially go beyond certifications to other forms of credentials. So there's a lot more to come for IICRC in future years. And I can't wait to roll that out. One other thing that I will say before I turn it over to the chairman is that I'm fortunate to have arrived here with an incredible board of directors that is very supportive of me, starting with the chairman, but everyone else, including the chairman-elect, Kerry Vermillion, on down, but also the staff. Usually when you're a new CEO or president walking into an organization, you know, it takes a bit of time. And of course, it took me some time to interact with our team, but they have fully come on board, embraced me, embraced our new vision that we have for the Institute in the creation of a strategic plan, our core values, and they've all been very dedicated and committed to supporting our technicians, our certified firms, our instructors and schools. So I'm deeply appreciative of the work that they do every day, even though I don't always tell Kevin that they might come in on a Saturday.
Well, it's really cool to hear the ideas to embrace technology. And I will definitely enjoy receiving something digital rather than wait for weeks in the mail. So thank you for that. Kevin, anything
Absolutely.
from you to registrants or those seeking to become registrants?
Yeah, Jeff, I think a lot of people, once they see me in this role, they don't know my story or how I got here. And, there was a time where I cleaned carpet every day for 12 years, and I was on the truck every day. And so I've been there, and I've, kind of come up in the organization, so to speak. But I would just say if there's somebody out there that wants to get involved, that is out there every day cleaning carpet, hey, it's a good organization to get involved in. You're going to learn things along the way that's going to help you in your business, and you're going to grow as a person. And who knows, one day you might actually be chairman of the board. So it can happen. Living proof. So I just say, go ahead and get involved.
Well, guys, I appreciate your time, and we'll catch up. Hopefully, I know in October virtually, but hopefully in person shortly after that.
Sounds good, Jeff. We look forward to it.
All right.
Thanks, Jeff.